Hello and welcome to the How to Film Weddings podcast. My name is John Bunn and I'm riding solo today with an interview with my good friend Eric Floberg. Man, we just got off the call and this episode is full of information that I think you really need to hear, just about maintaining a balance in your life, what you do when you're struggling, just why are we doing weddings in general. If you know anything about Eric Floberg, he's got a massive following online. He is such a real, authentic guy. And we just had a real conversation. The last hour changed me, is helping me, and I know it will do the same for you. So without further ado, let's hop into this week's episode with the one and the only Eric Floberg.
It seems like there are new cameras and equipment coming out all of the time. It gets increasingly confusing and the FOMO is real. John and I have been preaching for years that the best way to try out new gear is to rent before you buy. There is only one place that we recommend when it comes to renting, and that is our friends over at Lens Rentals. Lens Rentals is the premier source for renting not only camera equipment, but lenses, drones, projectors, and more. Do you have a big project coming up and you really need to wow your couple? Wanting to test out the newest camera before you drop thousands on it? You need Lens Rentals. My favorite thing is that if I love something I rent, I can keep it. They apply a portion of the rental fee to the purchase price, and within a few simple clicks, the gear is mine. So head over to howtofilmweddings.com/lensrentals and use promo code HTFW15 at checkout for 15% off of your order. Lens Rentals, the only place we recommend renting.
All right, well, we are here with my good buddy, Mr. Eric Floberg today. Eric, say hello to How to Film Weddings. How are you, my friend?
Hello, How to Film Weddings. How are you, my friend?
Good. This is a good start. How are you?
Is that the most dad start you've ever had?
It's one of the top five, but you've been on the podcast, I think, 5 times, so you've got like 3 or 4 of the list on the top dad moments. But tell us what you're up to right now. Who the heck are you, and what are you up to right now?
My name's Eric Floberg. I am a father of 4, a husband, a citizen of Chicago suburbs now. No longer in the city because I have 4 children. We had to buy a house, get more space. So that's been a recent development in the past year. We used to live in like a super vibey, cool, lofted condo. And now I'm spraying weeds every other day in a yard to like get my lush lawn right. Because I don't want to sit on Creeping Charlie in my backyard, you know?
I 100%. I know. I send pictures of grass to my friends all the time now. That's what I do.
Yeah. Yep. No. Yeah. That's my life. That's my life now. I don't do any of the cool stuff anymore.
That's good.
What's funny is like that does feel kind of true. I feel like I'm kind of battling that recently. Like, where's my identity? Am I losing all of my charm and my creativity because now I live in the suburbs and I'm in full dad mode? So yeah, there's a lot of introspection, reflection that needs to be done regularly to realize that that's not my purpose or like why I'm on this earth to try to be cool. But that could be the pitfall that you fall into a lot, as a YouTuber, as a content creator online. So yeah, I'm always doing a lot of things, in my personal life. This is going to be like my craziest year of distance running training. I'm fresh off of my first half marathon race ever. I've run 5 marathons, but I've never run the half marathon distance. So that was super exciting. And that ties into kind of my work life this year because I'm shooting a documentary with Joe Greer about his marathon attempt in December of 22. So getting really introduced to the running world and introduced to more people in Joe's realm. And yeah, that's the big thing I'm working on this year. So there's BTS on my YouTube channel all year going on with that. Really been ramping down the amount of weddings I'm shooting, only doing about 10 this year. Just booked another one that hasn't happened in months, but now I'm really kind of niching into the ones I really want to shoot because I don't want to give up shooting weddings. I just really enjoy it. I've shot 2 elopements already this year, and they were just so much fun and so my style, and really kind of realizing that if I want to do all the things that I do, I really think that the small wedding and elopement thing will be what I do when it comes to the 10 that I shoot a year. It's a long answer, but that's a lot of it.
That's cool. Yeah. And you were just one of the speakers for our mastermind group a month or so ago. And afterwards, like, you were just talking about like who you were aiming for and who you were wanting to go for, and how like it at a certain it was more about a location and a person and a vibe more than a dollar amount, and just like really understanding, and I've felt this a little bit, just like more understanding who I am and why I'm on earth, and what I'm doing here. And it's not just about like how much more I can charge always. It's about finding a balance in your life. And I wanted to ask you kind of about that. As a dad of 4, I have 2 kids. I've got a house payment. I've got a yard to make sure the fescue's got, weed and feed in it and all the, the stuff. And, and you said something that was pretty profound in our mastermind talk. You were just talking about like on your tombstone, you don't want it just to say like YouTuber. So like, I guess the question is like, how are you staying balanced? And maybe talk a little bit about kind of who's important to you and why a little bit.
Yeah. My family is of the utmost importance to me, and making sure that those relationships are at the forefront in everything I do. That's the most important thing to me right out the gate. Next after that, as far as relationships go, is everybody that's in our studio at Creative Club Chicago. They're my closest and tightest friends. They're my confidants and work partners. And they're just my closest people. So constantly making sure that those relationships are good in the chaos of all the things that we do. And so then past that, then it sort of starts getting into the circles of, I don't really have much more than that. Like I have a church community with a tight-knit group, and then it kind of starts extending into who I teach and who I mentor and those types of relationships. But even looking at that many relationships and that many people, that's even overwhelming, like managing all of that. So I think I'm constantly kind of in a state of mind with like really protecting those relationships and protecting my time, because we've been doing a lot of thinking recently in Creative Club. We're refinishing the studio right now. We just got really cool wallpaper that I'm really stoked about. And we just got a couch in here that like completely changes the vibe of the place. We just ordered a ton of new furniture. We've been shooting commercial work to subsidize all of those things being put and placed in the studio to get it exactly how we want it. But 3-4 years ago, we kind of started Creative Club as like this non-pretentious place where anybody could come and co-work. That was kind of our mantra. And while during that season, that was a great thing to do, because we just got to know so many people and started so many relationships and made so many connections in our work life. Once 2020 through 2021 hit, and that wasn't really a reality anymore, we started to get a bit more introspective on what we wanted the studio to be. And that mantra kind of shifted, not that we are now a pretentious place that doesn't allow anybody in, but rather really kind of recognizing and protecting what we do have in our tight-knit community and relationships. Because if there's too many people coming in and out of the door always, the relationships become incredibly transactional, and like nobody gets anything done because you're just having the same surface level conversations with a multitude of people. And we're really interested in investing in people who are like willing and wanting to stay for a longer period of time. Mm-hmm. So that's where we are with work life in Creative Club. But I went through therapy for a solid 4 or 5 months, thinking about starting it back up again soon. It's not something I ever will graduate from or think that I can graduate from. But my therapist was just like, you just come back to me whenever you feel like you're ready. And I think he knows I have enough self-awareness to be like, I need to reach out to him when I need it, because I do know when I need it. And I feel like I'm starting to get back into that phase. But that was just incredible for me to dissect how I'm treating other people in my life and how I'm receiving stuff from other people, and really just recognizing who I am at the core of who I am and what my desires and wants are. And similar to you, it's like not always just chasing more and more dollar signs, but like I'm in a phase right now where I'm interviewing for a full-time editor and a full-time like shooter. That's just always going to be working by my side full-time. And I'm having all these conversations with them about like what this role is going to look like and what it's going to mean to me, because I'm at this crux right now where if I wanted to, I could push myself past the 40-hour work week and like overwork myself. Mm-hmm. I have no desire to do that. So I'm in a phase now where I'm like, I'm perfectly fine with making just as much as I did last year or less while taking on an employee and that risk of needing to pay that person so that I can maintain my lane and keep a 40-hour work week. And if they can keep my business afloat alongside me doing the work as well, great. And we'll kind of move on from there. So yeah.
Yeah. I want to ask this too, because I know, as Nick and I have more people that, are listening to our podcast or asking questions, or, we're getting DMs all the time. We're getting messages all the time, and there are people to help, and we're here to help people as educators. And I learned after a few years that like the inbox is never empty, and there's always somebody that wants to know what camera we're using or how to do something or how something works or and it always feels pressing. And I realized soon after starting How to Film Weddings, like how addicted to my phone I was and how addicted to my work I was. And I went through like a detoxing process where I really looked at everything practically in my life. And I said, I'm not plugging my phone in by my bed anymore. I'm putting my phone in the other room at a certain time. I watched one of your videos just talking about like, the one you put out about, being addicted to your phones. And like, if I'm walking from one location to another in my house, am I looking at my phone or am I, so like balance is really important for all of us. And you said you don't want to have 1,000 relationships, that are like an inch deep and a mile wide or whatever. You want to have intentional time. But like on a practical, like what does that look like for you to be able to give your full attention to your wife and your kids whenever you're at home, when you feel, you've got your 100,000 plus subscribers asking questions and your Patreon and your 50,000 Instagram followers and all these numbers and stuff, and people are like, ooh, I want that. Have you noticed any like balance issues? Like how do you stay balanced? Like
100%. It's never anything I'm cured of. It's always something I'm struggling with. I go through seasons of it being good and trying new methods. And since I've made that video, I'm definitely like back into a rhythm that I don't like and would love to implement some of those. And the ones I talked about, it was inspired from the Dad Strides podcast, because that's really the only podcast I listen to.
Outside of this one. Yes. Outside of How to Film.
Of course. Yeah, Niles and Caleb started Dad Strides. They're two dads who just like running. That's my profile right there. So I love every single episode they put out. And one of them, they were talking about a guy that they talked to, or he's very intentional with his phone time. It's no phone the first hour after waking up, no phone hour before bed, no phone when you're walking or moving. And then no phone on the toilet either, which I know a lot of dudes struggle with. That extends the already long time it takes to poop. But I've been slacking off on that more and more because of how busy this season is right now. Of just being like, oh, I deserve it, And it's good to have conversations like this, because I've been feeling kind of that nag come back of just like, no, you don't need to be checking. You can be present that first hour. I never did the hour before bed, but I was consistently doing the hour after waking up. And that was really giving me a lot of mental clarity. Something that I personally feel like I need is my running time, like having enough time in a day to just have alone time. And that gives me the opportunity to then devote myself to family time, to just have a little bit of time for myself. And most of the time I'm trying to do it while they're asleep. So just waking up at ungodly hours in the morning, 4:30, 5 a.m. to get that run in before they even wake up. But we've also just taken the financial burden of getting a gym membership on to now like have some time where the kids can be watched by, the kids program at our gym. So like we can go do our own separate workouts, my wife and I, and that gives her the ability when I'm at work as well to drop the kids off for an hour or two. It's just been kind of life changing to have that option now. And it's honestly so much more affordable than I thought. It's less money than what we were paying a babysitter. So it's like $240 a month. And we're like, yeah, that's a no brainer for us. So, that's been incredibly helpful. So those are some technical things. As far as the emotional side goes, it's just always checking in. Like my wife and I are, and I think this is a pretty stereotypical thing that happens with tons of couples, or it's just like feeling that tension. My wife, a lot of times, like I know something is going on, but she won't voice it ever to me. And so it's really getting and digging and finding out what that is and unearthing that instead of just holding bitterness or, having any kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Passive aggressive behavior. Yeah. And just like crushing all that stuff as it happens. Like we had a big issue yesterday after my race where I had to, and the scheduling and times in our schedule where she just got like 2 full days with her best friend out on a girls trip, and it was awesome time for her to do that. I had all the kids for 2 days, and we just weren't doing a really good job of communicating expectations of like, okay, what happens when you come home? Because she knew I had my half marathon race, and I had this expectation of, okay, well, that's really important to me. That I need time to go do that. So I did it. And then immediately her expectation was, okay, now we get to do family time. And I was like, I just ran 13.1 miles, like the hardest I ever have. I'm very exhausted. I would actually love to like be celebrated right now. That's how I'm feeling. Like I want you to celebrate me. That's honestly just how I feel right now. And the fact that I have to now like have intentional family time the hour after I just finished this, it was a lot of that like completely misfiring. And so we had to reckon with all of that. We had to uncover it. I was not very gracious, and in the time I was just angry. I was very angry and needed to apologize for being that angry in response. This is very specific, but like these are the kinds of things we are working through constantly. And so I never want that to be something that's hidden from the world. And I don't share a lot of the really personal stuff that goes on in my life, but I do like being open about it. Most of the time in conversations like this, not, outside of the fact that, thousands of people will probably listen to this. Like I don't really, and I don't know, I'm trying to think of like, do I start making content like that? Do I start giving specific examples? A lot of me is feeling like that. A lot of me is feeling like I want to start moving into a realm of just being like, hey, let's unearth what real life is actually like, instead of like the 7 tips you need to make 6 figures a year. But like, oh, this is the really difficult thing I dealt with my family this week. And this is how it's affecting my work. Yeah.
I think all of that is like hitting home for me, I think about my wife Heather, and I just think about all that she's had to like, all the time she's had to watch the kids. She does not shoot with me. She watches the 2 girls every time I go to a wedding. I'm going to Guatemala in a few days, and like she's going to be here for 7 days while I'm out, getting photos for Instagram and killer films and fulfilling my dreams and all these things. And I think about her. I think about just the family unit itself, and like trying to be present myself, and having a hard time sometimes like clicking over into like that stuff can wait till tomorrow. I just want to be with my daughters, and I just want to swim in the backyard today, and that's all I want to do. And you rewind 30 years ago, the internet wasn't really a thing. And you were going to go work, and then you're going to check out, and you're going to come home, and there was nobody who could bug you. There wasn't a beeper even. There was no cell phone. It's like just barely, fax machines. But you got to have this balance. And I just think that the way that the algorithms are pushing and the way that the it's like you have to be present every day on your social media, and you have to do this and whatever. And it's like we're doing all these things while the people that we care about the most in our inner circle are suffering a lot of times. And like I will have guilt, from time to time, just being like, man, I spent this whole weekend just kind of looking at my phone and responding to strangers that I don't know about like camera settings than watching my 4-year-old ride her scooter up and down the driveway. Like, why didn't I do that? Like, and I have this extreme guilt of like, man, I really failed. Or Heather and I will get into an argument, or whatever from unmet expectations or whatever. And I rewind back and I'm like, what have I been doing to invest into those relationships? Are they getting the best of me, or are they getting the leftover of me? And I personally have felt last week, Nick let me take the whole week off, and I just recentered with my family. And like, I was supposed to be out of town for a trip and it got canceled. And just had a few days where I'm just like, hey, I don't have anything on the schedule. I'm just going to be at home. Nick, can you please just take How to Film Weddings and like all the responsibility and just give me a few days to like recenter? And I wake up today and the kids are back at school, and like I just feel so much better because I took the time to say, I need a minute for me. I think a lot of people don't do that. So what do you do? You run, you those kinds of things, but like, how do you notice that like, something is getting out of bounds? Like, what are your signs? What are your tells that it's like, I need to like refocus or something's off? Or does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah. It manifests itself in different ways between each of my kids and my wife. Like, they all react different ways. My oldest, he will be very shy and unapproachable when I'm not available or present. I can notice that he just becomes cold and rightfully so, puts his guard up and is just like, yeah, you're not around, like you're going on another trip this week. So, so it's me trying to meet in that specific scenario. It's me trying to meet him on his level. And while it's definitely something I don't want to talk about, like maybe I engage in a conversation about Pokemon or, there are other things where like a constant struggle for me is getting stuff fixed. Like I will just let something be broken for the longest time and just work around it and use it as a creative obstacle instead of just taking the hour or two that needs to be spent on it to fix it and then get back to. And then I will just do this, and it'll have a compounding effect to the point where then I have a day where like everything is broken and nothing is working, and it's incredibly stressful for me. So that's another technical, practical thing that I've been trying to practice more so that other stuff doesn't fall by the wayside. Because we went on our first trip down to shoot the documentary with Joe. We popped one of the tires on my electric bike that we've been using for filming. So I'm like, great. It's not just a tube, like the tire actually ruptured. So I was like, great. That's a lot harder of a fix. Awesome. But Mike immediately is just like, oh, it's easy. Just take it into a bike shop. Like, no problem. And I'm like, I don't think you understand how difficult that is for me to spend a few hours into my workday that is so, cherished by me, which then sometimes just gets completely ruined by scrolling through social media, which is so stupid. I've been trying to be better where like it wasn't super fast that I did it, but it was within a month where I got it to the bike store. Of course, it was just an incredibly easy process to sit with the guy, figure out what the problem was, and then I just picked it up yesterday. Immediately when I picked it up, now all of a sudden I have this new way to connect with my boys. My two oldest love riding that bike with me, and we just, because it's been cold, because it's been broken, we haven't been able to ride it. So we went on our first ride of the year yesterday, and it was something that I immediately got to do. It was very easy for me to do, to be able to connect with them. And there was this one moment with my 5-year-old where I was like, oh, there's a baseball game, let's go and watch it. So then I was explaining baseball to him, how the game works, and then we watched the team like have a walk-off hit, and he thought it was like the coolest thing. So it's just all these little vignettes and moments where it's like, if I just find the discipline to do some of the things I don't want to do, that are really annoying to me. It can really drastically change the relationships in my life, the things that I really care about, because then it will then give me ideas to like, because then, you know, yesterday I just ordered pizza for the family. I was like, we're just doing pizza. I didn't even ask my wife. I'm like, this is what we're doing. And of course she was like, I'm not going to argue with that. I don't have to make dinner. Great. So I went and got the pizza, and on the way I'm brainstorming like, what can we do to make the rest of the night fun? Recently we've been on a huge like Price is Right kick. The boys just like love to, and like the little ones, like Linnea, she's 2.5. She loves it too. She tags along. She doesn't really get it, obviously. But I just came home and I just made up this game. I was like, we are going to play the Price is Right as we watch it. So we never watch TV during dinner, but it was just this special time where like we watched it during dinner, and then the boys got to face Sabria and I as teams, and we would both bid on the opening thing, and if whoever was closest got to like have the contestant be the proxy for them. So if they won, then they won $1 for that round, and they ended up like making $8 at the end of the night. So it was just like crazy. They won the showcase and everything, and just little moments like that where it's like, if I don't have the mental energy to think about that stuff, carve out the time or make certain decisions that are intentional, I don't think of those things. And I know that's a constant criticism that my wife has of me, where it's just like, I just want you to think intentionally about what could you do with our family that would make them feel that way? Because I knew I knew when I walked in the door that I had a home run idea. So like I'm like stopped and I'm like, all right, everyone listen up. And I could see Sabria just like creep a smile on her face. Like, this is fun. I know it's fun for the kids. And yeah, if we're constantly inundated with our work or caring too much about getting back to an inquiry, like that wedding that I just booked, that's still booked, they sent me an email early Saturday morning, and he was like, hey man, could you just change this one thing in the contract about like that we're going to pay through QuickPay, and then like we're good to go. Could you just revise that? We want to get this done today. It was the verbiage. And I was like, that's great that you want to get that done today. I don't. So if that means I lose you, that's fine. I'm not in a place where I need to book you, so you're going to have to wait for me, actually. And so we did. And I just sent a text to my assistant, and I was like, hey, whenever you have the chance, could you take care of this? She even was busy then. I was like, I have no expectation for you to do this now. Please know that. Just like whenever you have any time. If that's Monday, that's cool. She ended up getting it done yesterday. They signed the contract. Great. Like, I don't need to engage with that stuff, because what ended up happening was so much more important this weekend, with being able to do bike rides and having the pizza party with Price is Right. And who's to say that wouldn't have happened if I answered that email? But it's a cascading effect psychologically. Like, if you go down that route, then all of a sudden your brain switches into work mode, and you're just not thinking critically of, okay, what could I do with my family? How can I be intentional with them to spend time with them? Yeah.
And the society, especially lately, it's just like wants more and more of your attention to like, you know, and as a father, as a parent, as a husband, like all these things, I a lot of times feel like my family gets the leftovers, right? Of just like, oh, you've been working hard, or you just have been traveling, or you just shot a wedding, or you, where is dad, like fun dad? Are we going to have fun dad today? Are we going to have tired dad? Or like, is dad just going to be looking at his phone? Or how many times have I said, hey babe, sorry, I need just to run in my office for a minute because my office is now at home. Those kinds of things. And like setting up balance, for those things. One of the things I wanted to like just kind of chat about too is just why, like remembering why we're doing what we're doing. And I guess I would ask you, why are you doing, like, what is your purpose for doing all of this? Like, why are you trying to grow a following, or do like, what motivates you to do that?
So it's a great segue, because I really wanted to touch on this too. After everything I just said, I think a lot of people would hear what I just said and think like, wow, that's a really privileged perspective to have. Like, oh, you don't have to answer that email? Well, I might have to answer that email because I need to make that money. I need to land that job. And I think that's true of a lot of people in certain seasons. Like, I went through that season where I did have to answer that email immediately to get the job. I'm not in that place now. So that's why I have built what I have built. My business is so diversified at this point that if anything falls through on a given day, one thing, it doesn't matter because I'm not reliant on that one thing. And that is one of the most freeing things. It gives me the psychological freedom to say, I don't need to respond to you right now. Like, if you want to work with me, this is what it's going to take. It's going to take a little bit of patience on your end. And I could do a better job of setting expectations for potential clients and clients in general, because then they could know like, oh, I could put in my email footer, I don't respond to emails on Saturdays and Sundays. Like, I just don't do that. And if people are reasonable, they're going to be reasonable with you. They're not going to, if they're not willing to be reasonable there, that's a great indication you probably shouldn't work with that person. Mm-hmm. I understand that sometimes you need to work with those people to get to where you want to be. And again, that's just something you need to be self-aware about in your whatever part of the journey you're on. If you're in the hustle phase or if you're in a part where things are robust and good. So that's why I personally love the diversification of a business where there's income streams coming from 5, 7, 9 places, because it just gives me that flexibility. And now, even more so now that I'm going to have a full-time employee, I've really like held back from doing that for so long. I think it's really going to be the thing that allows me to like have a robust grip on all of those things with still being able to work in the amount of time I want to. Every candidate I've been talking to in the interview process, I've been telling them that I'm on this mountaintop right now where I maybe could ascend to the next peak if I wanted to, but I don't. I really want to start descending. And I see myself continuing to descend the next 10, 20 years. I am incredibly privileged to say that at the age of 30, but I have put in that work and had the self-awareness to see that that is the vision and the goal, because I do have kids that are getting older. Like, I have a 7-year-old now. He's turning 8 this year. I have 10 years left with him until he's an adult. Like, that is wild. I can't spend the next 10 years continuing to ascend. He's going to be an adult and I won't have it back. So what kind of things am I putting in my life? What kind of self-awareness am I recognizing and acting on to make sure that that stuff doesn't happen, and that I can have those weekends where I just sit and play in the kiddie pool in the backyard and, we're kicking the soccer ball around.
Mm-hmm. I almost started crying. I looked over, I have a photo of my dad on my desk, mm-hmm. and was just thinking, you just don't know how much time you have with the people mm-hmm. that you're working so hard for. And like, my daughter is finishing 5th grade this week and she's 11. And then I have my 5.5-year-old, and like, I can't get over how much enjoyment I have whenever I'm the fun dad with them, when I'm mm-hmm. like, when I just give them like yesterday I woke up and everybody else was asleep and it was a perfect morning. The pool was finally like warm enough to just like do a morning, like the sun was rising. It was just mm-hmm. 75 degrees, but the pool was 85 degrees. And I was like, I'm going out there and I'm swimming and like, I'm turning on some worship music. We got like a sound system out there and it's just like, this is heaven. Like, this is what heaven is like. The birds are chirping and I'm just swimming and I get out and I'm doing some stretches, and like my 5-year-old just comes out and she's only in her bikini bottoms and that's it. And she runs out. It's like, Dad, we're swimming. And like, we just spent like an hour together as the sun was rising before anybody else woke up. And like, I was throwing her and she was in her goggles and her little puddle jumper. And like, we just had the best time. And like you were talking, like, I mean, that's just a core memory kind of moment for her. Mm-hmm. And I know that we're providing these, moments for our families. And like, I think about all of the work that I've put in, since 2007, going full time, on my own, which, is 15 years now or whatever. And it's just like, mm-hmm. oh my gosh, like I've been pushing so hard. And I think that I'm where I wanted to be. Like, this is where I want to be. The income I wanted to be. I'm shooting the number of weddings I want to shoot. I've diversified with how to film weddings and some investment accounts. And like, if a wedding cancels, which that's what happened last week, a wedding canceled, like, okay, like not the end of the world. Like mm-hmm. and like, I just think that even in this position, like I have to know the things that are my triggers for what is causing me to not, be the in the right headspace for my family? Or how am I, like, one of the things that like I really have started to take off my phone is notifications of any kind outside of my inner circle, to where I can put it on do not disturb outside of these 5 people. When we were in Denver a couple weeks back, I got a text message just about a thread that was going on of some hate towards how to film weddings. And somebody texted me and I didn't have my do not disturb on, and I was just like, dang it. Like, this is like, and you know, going down that rabbit hole and different things like that. But like, you have to be protective of your heart and what you're seeing. And, you know, anyway, I digress, all just to say that like, if you're not being intentional about why you're doing what you're doing, you're going to end up just like burning yourself out and your family's going to suffer.
Yeah.
So.
And I realized I didn't really answer that question in my response. And the truth is I have been doing, and I continue to do what I'm doing so that I can provide more time for my own life. So I can create that invaluable asset in my life where like no monetary asset or anything business related will ever give me what time is. And so, but you do need to structure your life and your business as a solo entrepreneur, especially one that's, you know, the only income earner in the home, to then make sure that you are valuing and protecting that time in the future and having enough self-awareness and future sight to see that is what I'm working for, that is what I'm going for. And then like being true to the word, being true to saying that you are going to carve out specific time and allow time to be there. So I'm in the midst of a very, very hectic month to 2 months. I've never made presets. I've never made LUTs, and I've finally done it. And of course, because of everything that was put off and procrastination by me and like how long communication takes and all that stuff, they're both like happening at the same time in the midst of shooting a documentary, in the midst of making sponsored YouTube content. Like all of the tornadoes are converging. And I am in this season where I'm like, okay, well, what is this going to mean next month? Like, what can I do intentionally? I look at the first week of June. Okay, cool. I have nothing in the schedule the first week of June. Protect it. I have my marathon the next weekend, but we're going to go up as a family. Protect the 2 days before and the day after. We have a wedding we're going to as a family. What can I do intentionally to make that trip fun and not stressful? So like having the foresight to start looking at what's next after a crazy few weeks, and then go, okay, how can I work towards the goal that I have at the end of the day, the thing that I do want to be on my tombstone? Like what will make it true? What will make the phrase like loving husband and father true on that tombstone if I'm not like intentionally looking at what's to come and making sure that that is the case?
Yeah, that's really good. Nick and I have to tell you about one of our favorite places to upload our wedding films, and that is Love Stories TV. Love Stories TV is one of the best free resources for us wedding filmmakers. The best part is they are bringing the couples to us. All we have to do is upload our films and we are good to go. Upload unlimited wedding films to your completely free business page. Setup is easy and your films can be live in just minutes. Now is the perfect time to start uploading to Love Stories TV. So head on over to howtofilmweddings.com/lovestoriestv to check out all of the details and see how Love Stories TV is giving away $10,000 in cash to wedding filmmakers just like you. That's howtofilmweddings.com/lovestoriestv to start uploading and connecting with the right couples today.
One question that we see wedding filmmakers asking, what is the best site for licensing music? We have one answer, Musicbed. I have been exclusively using Musicbed since 2016, and our films are better because of it. I have been told during consultations that couples love our films because they feel raw, authentic, and that the music wasn't cheesy. Musicbed has a roster of incredibly talented musicians, bands, and composers who pour their hearts into their work, and you can hear the difference. Find the perfect song with Musicbed's intuitive search features like genre, mood, beats per minute, and key, which is probably my favorite of the search parameters. Head over to howtofilmweddings.com/musicbed to do what I did and take your wedding films to the next level. Use promo code HTFW22 at checkout to receive 1 month free with the purchase of any annual subscription. That's howtofilmweddings.com/musicbed.
Yeah, and for me, like protecting, you might be out there listening and it's like, I don't have a family yet. I don't have, and it's like just being self-aware of the season that you're in. I just know so many people that are just they're like, yeah, I'm so focused on, like, I wish that whenever I was, just starting, that I would have made sure I continued to play golf every now and then. And I wished I would have set some time, like carved out some time for me, regardless, if I'm a married person, a single person, whatever it is, have a family to take care of, living at home with mom still, whatever, wherever you're at. If you're not carving out that time and being intentional with it, you're just you're going to burn out, and having people in your life, friends in your life that you can communicate, knowing your signs, knowing that you need to talk to somebody, knowing, that you're feeling like I have for the longest time, I just grew up in such a way that I was not really allowed to have preference or feeling. And if I was, it was kind of like I'm one of 4 boys, and I never really got to pick anything. It wasn't like, John, how are you? John, we're taking you to do it. So like I had to relearn at a certain point, like, oh, it's okay if I'm, feeling overwhelmed. I need to tell that to Heather, and I need to tell that to Nick, and I need to say, hey, but I felt like that was a submission of failure. Like I'm failing because I'm feeling. And it's like, no, I'm not failing because I'm feeling. I'm failing because I'm not telling you how I'm feeling or trusting those people. And for the longest time, I mean, whether it be like how I grew up in the church that I grew up in, it's just more like, if you're living by how you feel, you're not living the correct way. And I just took that as, you can't feel. You can't have any feelings at all. No feelings allowed, and like that doesn't really work. And so, anyway, it's good to have conversations like these. And before we hit record, it was just like, hey, we're just going to talk about what's going on. And I guess the last little bit here, talking about like struggles and where you're struggling, like, basically, I guess I'd want to know from you, it's like, where are your biggest struggles right now? Like, where are you seeing yourself struggle, and how are you combating against those struggles, or what are you doing with those?
I love sharing the work that I do. That's just something that at the core of me, I just love being excited about something that I make and sharing it with as many people as I can. And I think a lot of people interpret that as something that's conceited, where it's like, look at how good I am. But I know I've come to realize that I am just genuinely so excited to just let someone else enjoy something I've made, because I know the feeling of receiving that too and celebrating with someone. So I am constantly sharing that stuff with my close circles. But it's really hard with a documentary where I can't share all the stuff. Like, I am sharing a BTS video here and there, but like we just made another trailer cut, and I'm like, oh, I just want people to see it. And I have to be so patient. Like, I literally have to wait like an entire year until people can actually see how this which is going to be such a beautiful moment. So that's really difficult for me in this season right now, because I do feel like I'm creating some of the best work I've ever created. And it just pains me to have to be patient, to wait for people to see and appreciate and like connect with that. Because I think it is going to, like, it's just so much deeper than on the surface what it seems like at this point. So that's really hard for me. I'm also starting to realize, like, as my business becomes more and more diversified, it's really difficult for me to work with brands. And it's not that I don't like any brands that I'm working with. I've chosen the brands I'm working with because I like them, because you get, in the YouTube world, you get a dozen emails from just garbage products every single day in your inbox. And you could say yes to a million things. I choose to say yes to like 2% of anything I'm offered ever. And it's usually just with brands that I like already use. But even then, it's this psychological game of make it within this time frame and make it for the brand. And that's just incredibly hard for me as a creative individual who wants to have autonomy on the stuff that I make. And it's really difficult for me to make work that I'm proud of that is connected to trying to sell something. So, and it just feels like you go through seasons of it compounding, and it's compounded right now. And I think that a lot of people see right through it. Like they see that it's not inspired and that it's not your best work. And a lot of times it isn't. It just is like checking a box to like move on so I can work on the creative thing. And while that's all good and fun and fine with like having a supportive base financially in your business so you could do the things you want to do, it's just I'm at a place now where I don't it's the same thing with the wedding conversation where like I don't need to book that now because I have this other stuff. And it's making me realize that I want to be like fully autonomous, fully my own thing that has my own assets that I can sell myself how I want to, when I want to. And I can invest in things like real estate that have just they're appreciating assets that could be cash flowing, those kinds of things, so that I'm not beholden to any kind of selling of anything I haven't made. And again, that's probably really hard for a lot of people to hear because they're just like, oh, that's the dream. Like that's the dream to have a sponsor for your podcast or your YouTube channel but like it is the same kind of psychological struggle of like meeting a deadline for a wedding edit that you have to get done. And you're just toiling over the fact that like, oh, this is not as good as if I had the time I actually needed to make this great. But 80% done is fine and I can move on. And I know a lot of people in the creative world know that struggle and that feeling. And so it applies the same to YouTube and online content. So that's making me kind of reformat how I'm approaching stuff. And I'm starting to come to grips with a lot of this documentary being self-funded in a lot of ways. Like we might be able to get some sponsors, but there's also the other side of me that's just like, I don't really want to be beholden to any kind of brand telling me to put something in this film when I don't want it to be in there, you know? Like it has to be organic. It must be. Like there's no way I'm willing to do anything outside of the scope and vision that I have for it, just for a brand. So, and sometimes that means digging into my own pockets to do so. So that's a big struggle I'm having right now and moving forward with what I do. And I think some of that can be remedied with hiring a full-time editor, because I could do some more sponsored stuff and then just relinquishing control. And like, if a video does well, it does well, or if it doesn't, it doesn't. And like, no matter what, I'm still trying to pursue the philosophy I have, which is just helping people make more money with their creative businesses and like to do the same pursuit that I'm doing so that they can diversify, they can build, and they could say no to people who like they deserve to be able to say no to, you know?
Yeah, I think that one, like, I don't want to sound entitled as well, but like, you know, with our podcast growing how it is and having sponsors and having our course and having like, I don't need weddings anymore to pay our bills or every month is the best month. You know, I say that a lot. I'm just like, this is so rad and so awesome to get to live a life where we're helping people and generating revenue to do so. And like, I feel like I'm right in the middle of my calling, you know, is like helping people, providing, you know, the message I love getting the most is, hey, I just quit my job because of what you said, and I'm going to make double this year. And there's no way I could ever repay you. Like, that's why I do this, why Nick does this. It's nice making money. Like, money is awesome. Like, don't get me wrong. But at a certain point, it's like more awesome. It's like, it just doesn't, and you need to be doing something that you're super passionate about. And it's like, we had on the way, as we're ascending, some jobs you take as a wedding filmmaker. It's like, I'm taking this one because I need the money. And getting to a point to where it's like, I don't have to do anything that I don't want to be doing. Psychologically, what that does for you, if you get to that point to where it's like, I'm only taking the weddings that really speak to me. I'm only doing this work. Like, it has allowed me to realize that I would do How to Film Weddings for free because I enjoy it so much. Like, I just want to do something like this for as long as, like, I can't see myself not wanting to do it. It's similar, like Dave Ramsey. He's worth $500 million or something. And he's like, I'm going to keep coming in here and doing this radio show because it's the work God has for me, and it's what I want to do. And like, until they kick me out of here, I'm going to keep coming back. And like, there's just something about that once you get to that point where, I'm not worth 500 million, unfortunately, but at the, where you get to this point where it's just like, I'm doing this out of a pure, genuine love for what I'm doing. I still struggle. I still have balance issues. I still have to like remember to communicate better to my wife and be a present dad and different things like that. But hopefully this episode is encouraging to those of you listening out there that like, remember why you're doing what you're doing, who you're doing it for, and enjoy the journey while you're doing it. Be aware enough to know whenever there's something going on that you really need to talk to somebody about. And know that it's okay to want what you want and to not want what you don't want. And you're not living your life so that you can impress somebody on social media. You have real friends and a real family, and that's what we're here for, is to help with that. I could go on for like 15 hours on that, which I would love to do that. I did want to give you a chance before the end of this episode, as we're wrapping up here, Eric. I know you've got a lot of ways people can connect with you. Just, if they don't follow you already, things like that. But tell me kind of what's on the horizon for you, for your educational brand, where people can connect with you, all that good stuff. Yeah, I know a few things, but I don't know much more than that. And that's fine. I don't have grand plans to I'm trying to keep it simple as much as I can recently. The best way you can connect with me is just watching anything I put out on YouTube. That's just kind of my main hub for everything. So it's just my name, Eric Floberg. I am making presets and LUTs, and my announcement video on YouTube for my presets is going to be presets don't work. Like, that's going to be the title. And I just want to communicate very clearly that what I mean by that is presets don't work the way so many people think. And it's true of LUTs too in video. Like, a lot of people just buy a preset or a LUT pack and they're like, oh, this is going to drastically change my career. And you're always so like deflated when you actually get the pack, and then you're like, oh, it's like fine. And so what I really want to do is like create enough educational content that's free around it, and then like tutorial based stuff when it's purchased to like see how I use it and use it really well to help with my workflow and anybody else's workflow. And just to kind of get the same style of looks that I do, not exactly what I'm doing, but giving like really solid options for a classic look and a vibey look, and just keeping it really simple like that, so that you can really focus on what you want to do philosophically with your business and not have to worry about the whole editing thing. Because I think a lot of people buy presets and LUTs because they're like, oh, this is gonna get me into the next echelon of work. This is going to give me the creative voice I always wanted, and that's just not true. Like, they just won't do that if you don't know how to use them. And so at the end of the day, I'm like, I really don't want you to purchase these things if you think that that's what it's going to do for you. I want you to purchase it if you feel like it's going to help with your production and giving you the freedom to do other things. It's going to help with your workflow. It's going to give you creative ideas and creative freedom in other ways, and help you develop your own voice.
So it's like I am like the worst salesman when it comes to this stuff, because I think you think of the stereotypical, like I got served one today, a YouTube advertisement that's like, it was a wedding one. It was like, I'd make $10,000 destination weddings, every single wedding. Here's my secret sauce and a free PDF and all this stuff. And I'm just like, oh man, like it's so hard. I'm like, that's just not true. It's not. And I do have my own course. Enrollment is opening again in July. Again, the whole thing, I'm like, people have come up to me, they're like, hey, I'm getting into food photography. Do you think this is going to help me? I'm like, no, it's not. It's wedding photography. There's aspects in it, but like, I don't think you should make a multi-$1,000 investment in something if it's not the actual niche you're in. If you're just buying it for hype and you think it's going to change your career, that's not it. I don't want you doing it. If you want to like be in my educational space, interact with all the other students, like hear my philosophy, core stories of my business, see profound BTS, like all those things, I do think it's an incredible investment for you. You could earn the money back in shooting one wedding if you do that. Again, that whole thing is giving me in my business and the personal autonomy to continue to say no to that other stuff. That's what I'm talking about in this whole podcast, is like the classroom, my course, these presets, these things are, I'm really hoping, it's what business is at the end of the day. You're either offering value to someone, or, you know, you're giving them the ability to, it's either value or you're giving them the ability to be more streamlined in their production, whatever they do. So I want it to be both of those things in whatever I make. And that's a really long-winded answer. I'm very sorry. Most people are just like, go check out my Instagram. But I care deeply about these things because I don't want anyone to feel like they're getting just like gypped from some influencer who's selling some garbage to them. Like I pour my heart and soul into the things that I make, and I want people to know that's why I make them. And if for whatever reason that doesn't ring true, I'm more than happy to refund and like have a conversation about it. So
yeah, and that's what I love about just being your friend and hanging out with you and knowing you. And you know, it is difficult whenever you hear wind of people being like, oh yeah, you're just one of those kinds of educators, you know, like that is like this or whatever, haters out there, different things. That's something I struggle with and have to like just breathe in and breathe out. And it's like, it's okay. Like, you know, but like knowing the behind the scenes on like what effort you've put into the products that you make. And like, again, you don't make them unless you feel like they're really going to serve people. And yeah, of course you want to get, you know, paid for creating things that are helping people save thousands of dollars or thousands of hours of time. And you see the countless reviews of your courses or your products of people saying, oh my gosh, this is so worth it. And that's why we do this. We're not here, you know, that's why How to Film Weddings. That's why Eric, and it's like, we're not just like, hey, how can we steal some money for some people real quick, retire and get out of here? You know, you see us year after year continuing to push to grow, recording things and growing as individuals as well. And like, it's so fun to watch you. You know, I met you when you were back in your 20s. Now you're in your 30s.
Now I have gray hair.
Yep. You're still running faster than you were even when I met you, I think so. With your 6-minute mile for a marathon or half marathon. It's like if I ran 6-minute mile once, I would be dead. Like 7.5 minutes maybe. But anyway, but yeah, it's so fun to watch you be diligent in little things and grow as a human. And I'm inspired by you. I know people listening are inspired by you. I thank you for your time. I know it's a precious asset. So thank you so much, Eric, for taking the time to be on the show.
Yeah, I say no to a lot of podcasts, but this one is one I'll never say no to. I don't mean that it's a facetious thing, but I love you a lot.
I love you too, my friend. All right, thanks so much for being on.
Of course.
All right, thank you, Eric, for being on the podcast. If you do not follow Eric already, be sure to hit him up in the link in the show notes or below this video. Thank you so much to everybody tuning in, and until next time, we will see you. Are you looking for a better way to deliver your wedding films to your couples? Look no further. Our friends over at Webflow provide the most flexible video delivery solution on the market. Webflow is pay per project with no large upfront cost or commitment, and you can cancel anytime. Not only that, Webflow offers a premium viewing experience for your couples. Accessible on mobile, tablet, desktop, as well as their very own suite of TV apps. Each project comes with 10 years hosting and an experience for your clients that will blow them away. Stop delivering your films the old-fashioned way and give your couples something to rave about. Head on over to howtofilmweddings.com/Webflow to check out Webflow today.